Okay, Friday. It is Illustration Masterclass. Hope you've been watching the other masterclasses from my good pals over on the evangelism team, my friends Terry and, of course, Paul and Adobe Jesus. All right, gang, hope you're doing well. Today we're going to pick up where we left off last time with this illustration where we are talking about focusing on certain areas of the art to add a little bit of detail, and other areas where we kind of push the details down by either reducing contrast or with edges being a little softer, less texture, sort of flattening things out a little bit. And so the idea is to draw the eye of the viewer to where you want them to look, all right? We've talked about that before in different episodes, but in this specific illustration demo here, we're trying to do it by still creating some depth and getting a real environment in the illustration while not having that environment be a distraction. Okie dokie. Alrighty, so let's jump on over into Photoshop and see where we left off last time. You can see that we have this setting, and you'll remember that there's a sketch right here, and we have a kid sitting and reading on a bench right here in this little clearing. You can just imagine maybe this is a park, or maybe it's this person's backyard, or whatever, it doesn't matter. But the main idea is we want to create an environment for them, okay? And what we did last time around was we had this trick of using the lasso tool to select these various areas in the background and just push and pull with either lights or darks and add a little bit of texture and detail in there, but it's definitely low contrast, right? These areas are not super dark against super bright, etc. And so the result is that you get this feeling of there being some depth as you move back into the distance. But I'm not going to get stuck in all of this, because what I'm going to do is come over here and I'm going to be more distracted by these clear shapes that are outlined against a higher contrast border, an area that they border up against. So this light against the dark and etc. And so that's where we wanted to focus our energy. We also added, as you can see with custom brushes, more texture in these trees here in the mid to foreground. And you know, you would think, well, in the extreme foreground I should add a lot of detail. Well, yes and no, depends. I see here I've used a brush to just kind of suggest some foliage here. I really don't want you to get too distracted with all that. So a lot of this, when we're really finished with everything, might get a little more blurry, a little softer, okay, so that we push in on our focal area here. All right, that's what we're going to try for. So let's say hi to some folks who are joining us. Hey, Cody, what's up? Afroha and Cryo, hello. Umacorn and Patrick and Steve, nice to see you all. And Jack, hi. Gary, thank you for joining us as well. Khaled, hello, Khaled. And Leah, hi, Leah. All these nice folks joining over on Behance. If you're watching elsewhere like YouTube or whatever, just know that I'm following the chat over here on Behance. That's be.net/live. Think about To Be or Not to Be by the great Bill Shakespeare. Talking about Hamlet. Okay. All right. I'm going to soften up that contrast right there. Super dark. Maybe I won't have to worry about it later when I put the figure in there, but just to do that now, what I'm going to do is grab this color right here, okay, which isn't the darkest of the dark. And you see I've got this little brush history up here from brushes. I was using one of those grass brushes. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a layer there and paint over some of that so it's not super dark, okay? And then I'm just going to knock that back in opacity about 50%. I can get super picky, you see, with how dark and how light I go by adding layers to my art wherever I feel it's appropriate. All right, a lot of this stuff is just sort of random mark making, but it suggests enough of what I need to suggest, and so I could leave it be probably for now. This little dark area here is just kind of one big solid shape. It needs to be broken up a little bit, and so what I'm going to do is probably use this hedgy brush. I might switch it over to the hedgy mix brush and just grab this color that's next to it and just pop it over there like that, just to break that up a bit. Okay, so that's a little less sort of flat like that. Again, you know, this is the kinds of things you can get as picky as you want. Just remember that whatever the size of your illustration is, always return back to that size for the print. I mean, like if you were going to actually print this out, the size you anticipate people are going to view it at, if it's online, if it's on screen, and make sure that you're not getting too involved in details that don't matter. And that's one of the things I talked about last time around, which is if you were to zoom in and work at this scale all the way through the illustration, you might get caught up on trying to draw all kinds of things that really don't matter, because when you return back to the original size for viewing, okay, all those details are going to get lost. They're just going to be little dots nobody cares about. So remember to do that. It's like when you're painting with traditional media on a canvas, you step back to not just check proportions and value structure and things like that, but to make sure that you're not getting lost in little areas that don't matter, okay? Okie dokie. Oh, hey. I see Gary speaking a little French there in the chat. Nice. Nice to see that. Gary, j'espère que tu vas bien et merci d'être ici pour regarder cette émission aujourd'hui. Alrighty, righty. Here we go. Let's keep it going, okay? We are going to now bring back our sketch for a moment. There it is. And we're going to start blocking in the character and the bench. Now we're going to do this pretty zippy, okay? We're not going to be too picky here about getting everything just right for now. What I really want to focus on is the bigger shapes and the darks and the lights. Then we'll move our way towards some details as we go. Okay, so to do that, now as you noticed in the other parts of the illustration, I was using the lasso tool. It's a good chance I'm going to do some of that here just to create the silhouettes I want, and then paint inside of those and use those as a starting point. Now, since the sketch it's not super tight, but it's pretty tight, I can do that pretty easily with what I've got here. So I'm going to just start drawing with my lasso tool like this. I'm just going to start in, and this is kind of just that basic area with the head and the glasses and all that. And what I'm going to do is just choose a nice light color and just block this in, okay? And then later I'm going to come in and I'm going to start painting all this, okay? But that's all I'm going to do now is I'm going to make this shape right here on its own separate layer. There we go. And I'll probably do this in pieces here. So I'm just going to grab this little area here. And for those who don't know what I'm doing, I'm using the key command, the keyboard shortcut, Option Delete, which is filling with my foreground color. If you're using a PC, that would be Alt Delete. I'm on a Mac, so it's Option Delete. All right, there's a book here, and there's going to be a hand there, and some of these shapes are probably going to get refined later. But for now, I'm just going to knock in what I can. I can always come back and fiddle with those, okay? And here, for example, I can add more of that pant leg right there. And here I can get a bit more specific with what's going on. I'm going to overlap all this area here with the bench, okay? But I just want to have this here for now, so I've got it in place. Alrighty. So that is sort of our figure. Now if I hide my sketch, I can just look at how that feels sitting there. One thing I'm thinking about is like how the perspective's going to work. I'll probably wind up tweaking some of that. We'll see how it feels later. Probably going to need to mess with that, but This is one of those things where I'll take some creative license. You know, also I could do this to sort of get that a bit closer to what I want. And for the bench, I'll just go ahead and do the same thing. Make a silhouette right underneath the character. Bring back that sketch so I can see what I'm doing. Knock that back a bit. And same deal, okay? So here I've got my layer, which is going to be the bench. And I'm just going to switch over to my polygonal lasso tool, polygonal, however you want to say it. And just cut across like this. And back this way, like so. And I'll just use a different color for this so I can keep them separate for now, okay? There we go. And these colors have nothing to do with the colors I'll actually wind up choosing for the final stuff, okay? They're just there as placeholders for now. I'm going to make this a box, so I better understand what it is I'm trying to do. And you'll see what I mean in just a moment here, because this is a good trick you can use. Kind of want this to end right there. See if I can reposition that slightly, and I might take some of that bench right there and change the shape using my Option key to switch that up right there. Means I'm taking away some of that bench. I can do the same thing here. That angle's a bit extreme. I can fill it in, and what I'm trying to imagine is basically this. If you think about this being a box, I want to think about whether it works as a 3D shape like this. Okay, I'm going to cut out the legs and all that. All right. So this is a little trick I want to pass along to you. Think about something as a full chunky 3D object, and then cut away what you need or don't need. Okay, and then this is gonna go away. All right, so we're just trying to make all this stuff make sense here. Up we go. There. And I just delete that, see? So now we're getting to creating the legs for this bench. And up and over. And down. And I'll probably have to add some bench there later, which will be very easy to do. I'll take care of that later. Now there's a leg there, but it's hidden by the leg of his of the character there, his own leg. So we'll leave that for now. And then here, what I can do is just extend this out a bit. And down and across. And then I'm just going to cut out a little bit of that like this. All right, there. Whoops. Hide our sketch. Make sure everything makes sense. So far, so good. This leg needs to be either fatter or this one needs to be thinner. Probably gonna go with I'm gonna take this up like this. You didn't know there was so much perspective drawing in a little silly doodle like this, did you? But there is. It has to, it has to all make sense. All right, so let's take our bench and just slide it like this. Kind of reposition it about there. That feels pretty good. Remember that we're going to be covering up part of that shoe there, okay? So what's going to happen is, if I make a selection of that right there, I can come over to that shoe and I can just erase that away, like so. Okay, so I made a selection of that layer and then I erased that away. All right, so any questions before I move on? Garrett's here. What's up? Hey, Marie-Agnès, nice to see you. Marie-Agnès, I hope I'm saying that right. Lambert, sounds French. Hassan from Egypt, how's it going? Nice to see you as well. Thanks for joining us. Well, Gary, you mentioned lasso selections being wobbly and asking for streamlining. Yes, I think that's something we need, and I'm actually trying to build a plugin for that, but it's tough going. But I just hopefully I'll have that working. My development pal and we're trying to make that happen for you. It is not easy, and I'm no code wizard, so what can I say? But something might happen. You never know. It might happen. Don't count us out. We've got ideas. We're trying to make cool stuff. Okay, so moving on, we are going to, now that we have these shapes, what you can do is you can lock your layer transparency and start painting inside, or you can use clipping masks to do a similar thing. So if I wanted to, for example, with my character here, I can use a clipping mask, just clip it by holding down the Option key and tapping between the two layers. And then I can just start painting, all right? And so for this, I'll just use something really, really standard. I could go into the Mega Pack, all kinds of painting options here in the paint box. So many, so many, so many. Something that might work nicely for this would be the Gouache Supreme, for example. That's a nice one. And we can just start painting. Now I do kind of like this orange color and almost feel like that would be kind of fun for the hair as a base. Okay, so I might just do that. That's kind of nice. And then for the skin here, just go ahead and clip another one here. And do this to start with. And I'll mess with some of that other stuff in a minute, but there's going to be a hand here. I might put that on a separate layer later, but we'll see. Okay. And now some of this stuff's going to be darker and lighter later. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna model things so that they make sense more three-dimensionally. But I'm not going to go crazy with it. It's going to be sort of more of a flat, cartoony kind of a look. Okay. But for now, we're just going to do this. I'm going to now, with that bench, may as well just go ahead and change the color and play around with that. And this time, I don't have to do any clipping masks. I can just lock the layer transparency and paint what I want. So we don't want the bench to take up a lot of, it's not going to take up a lot of importance. It's there as a structure that supports the person. So I'm going to be using colors that are close to, okay, the green here in the background, right? So that way you're not like, oh, hey, I really want to pay a lot of attention to that bench. See that? So by adding that blue right there, okay, it still stands out. There's still some contrast there, but it's definitely not like as bright and interesting as what's going to happen over here. And then I can just from there go a little cooler, a little darker, and paint here little details for the shadows. And I see I've got some perspective issues there, and all I have to do to resolve those is, well, I have two choices. I can pull this up higher, okay, like this, and cut across like that. Or I could have done the opposite. I could have cut out some of what was happening there with the leg, but you know, this is probably just as good a solution. It doesn't really matter. Notice I'm not being super picky about these lines. They're a little bit kind of wonky and everything. Totally fine. We're not going to be really concerned about that right now. Okay. And my idea is, you know, we've got the light kind of coming down over here, so we're going to have this kid casting a shadow here, okay, on the bench. So that's going to be part of what's going on here, okay? And if we want to, we can just carry this all the way across, like so. Whether or not, you know, the thing about shadows, I saw a funny note from someone recently where they're like, oh, you know, AI is gonna fix everything artists do wrong with shadows. And I thought, yeah, but what you don't understand is it's not that artists are intentionally getting the shadows wrong, it's that they are using the shadows as shapes in their design. So they're using some correct information about what shadows do, right? To make the picture make a bit of sense, but a lot of times the shadows are being used as directional cues for the person looking at the illustration to help guide the eye, pardon me. And so I just thought it was kind of a funny comment, like the person who wrote that wasn't really obviously ever painting. So all right, so there you go. See what I've done now with that bench. That was quick and easy, and we've basically suggested now sort of a direction for our light and all that. And you're probably thinking, well, now we got to add a shadow under the bench. Well, yeah, of course we can do that very easily. We just go on a layer under there, grab this nice color here, go a little darker, and we could use the same brush that's there, which was that grass brush right here. And we can just sort of throw that in like that. Okay? Maybe go even a little bit darker than that in some spots as we move away from the light. Okay. There's the result. So that helps to sort of ground it a little bit, right? Same deal over here. Just kind of carry that over like so. Okay, if you're wondering where this brush is from, by the way, not to worry. You know I'm always here to help you with the brush stuff. This is from the Summer 2021 brush set. Okay, there are a bunch of brushes in there called Blade. Okay, or Blades. Sorry, I think it's plural, but yeah. And those will give you some nice grass effects like that to paint. Zippy zippy. All right, so back to our figure. Now that we have this clipping mask, you can, even with a clipping mask layer, you can actually lock its transparency. Like this, you just lock it. So once I've done that, because this is its own shape, right, I can come back to that brush I was using right here, this Gouache Supreme. And with that, I can do things like this. I can paint inside of that shape without any fear of going outside the lines. Okay, it's going to be totally fine. Nothing bad's going to happen, right? So if I wanted to just sort of like model this head a bit, the hair shape on the head, whatever you want to say here, I can kind of do that quickly, right? Very simple to do. So nothing fancy there, just want to get something started. Go a little cooler. On the back there, we can sort of hit that with some light coming back from the forest or whatever. Zoom out, look at your work, then ask yourself if you need to push the contrast. You can always do that quickly by using your curves, right? Things like that. And because we're in a hurry here, I'm probably going to do that. I may also add a shadow on the head later, and one of the things you can do is you can make a selection. I mean, you can clip to what you've got already. This is really cool. You can make another layer and clip it, and because it's going to keep that shape there, you can use a blending mode like multiply, and then grab a cool color, okay, and knock that opacity down to like 40% or something like that, and just hit it like this, you know, and send the whole thing into shadow like that, so it looks like we've got that area, right, that's lit, and that other area that's dark. If you don't like that solid shape, you can always like do kind of a rougher shape like that. Just remember that the head is round, so you want to kind of like wrap around the shape of the head. All right, so we could do that now, we could do that later. We haven't yet decided on our shadow color. It might be something like a little cooler, like that. And, but yeah, it might be kind of a nice thing to throw some of that into shadow. So I could do like this. To knock that back. And if I want to soften that up, remember you've got your smudge tool, right? We were doing a bit of that last time, just smudging some bits and pieces, because those shadows are not going to be so sharp if they're further away from the head, right? So you just soften up that edge like that. Go ahead and play with your opacity, you know, try like 60%, and later you'll know if that's too dark, too light, whatever. All that stuff's adjustable. We're working in a non-destructive way, which is really important for this kind of stuff, right? Non-destructive is the word of the day. Well, several words, kind of. Okay. Now I don't have too much time to get picky here, because I know we're really trying to like get this to a point where it's mostly finished for the show. Got about 27 minutes left. What would you suggest to have more understanding of painting layers? Start with dark colors or light, etc. I never took any art class outside high school, says Stony. You know, I would say try going dark and then build up your lights and see how that goes. I think that's always a nice thing to try. That a lot of people, they feel like you got to go light to dark, and It's kind of a, like, if you remember what we did with the background here, if you didn't check it out last time, don't worry. It's all of these episodes are always archived on YouTube. You can just search for Illustration Masterclass, the same title as today's show, only without the part 2, with like knowing where to put in details, and you'll find that original class. And for that, I think you'll see that the way we built that background was a kind of a dark to light sort of situation as we came forward. In this situation here, I've already kind of got some midtones, I would say, for the face here. So like I can go dark and light. So with that face, you know, I can use that shadow method with the multiply layer, or I can just simply choose a color and start painting. You know, like that. I can just start in. Probably want to go a little warmer than that. There we go. I'm not using a ton of like color theory knowledge or anything because that's not my strongest thing. But I'm just kind of making sure one thing's darker than another. That's really kind of all I'm doing here. Is this darker? Great, mission accomplished. And then what I can do here is like just go bright like this and do a little hit on the nose, right? Like that. That sunlight hitting that nose. But check out James Gurney's book, Color and Light. Probably the best book I've ever seen that deals with this kind of stuff. Color and Light is the title again. And it's just great. I have it there on the shelf. I pull it out every now and then and look, and there's always something I learn when I look at it. The problem with me is, with everything else that I have going on in my life, I just almost never have time to really sit down and study this stuff anymore. I have the knowledge I've gleaned over the years from doing illustration professionally and working as an illustrator and kind of figuring out my own little tricks, but that doesn't mean I know everything, that's for sure. In fact, I know only what I need to know to be dangerous, and enough to be able to teach simple ideas, simple concepts, simple things like what you see me doing here. Okay? But yeah, that's kind of where it stops for me. But I try to learn a little something every year, you know, a little something, just to get a little better. That's always the goal. So here, you know, because they're glasses, I want to get picky. I want to make sure this really looks good. Everyone's different. You could just wing it, or do what you can with your hands, and that's fine. I'm gonna take advantage of what Photoshop gives me here with a marquee tool, and I'm gonna just use it. I'm gonna paint with that marquee tool. I'm gonna move that selection. I'm gonna transform that selection. Okay, and yeah, it's what I'm gonna do. I'm in a pinch. If I wanted to really like focus on trying to paint, so to speak, perfect ellipses by hand, well, I could do it. But you know, I don't think that's the best use of my time here for this demo. Okay? So you will forgive me, I hope. Yes. Alright, moving on. Just adding some shadows there on those glasses. It's cartoony, it's simple. You know, we can just literally do that for eyeballs at this point. Doesn't matter. And if we had the time, gosh, there's so many things I would do here later on down the road for this illustration. Let me just show you quickly what those things are before I'm going to move on to the rest of the body and try and do what I can. But just quickly, so you have some ideas and so you have some cool things you can try. I want you to be aware of these things. When you have something like this where you have a clipping mask and you've got your layer and you've got your areas you want to play with, here's something neat I want to show you, okay? You can add a layer, okay? And it's clipped, right, to this whole deal. You put it over the whole thing, so over all these other layers, still clipped to this general shape. And what you can do is do stuff like this. You can go into like the Summer 2022 brush set and grab the Soft Air brush, okay? Where are you? Soft Air. Okay, so this is like an airbrush kind of a brush. And what you can do is like with the ear and the nose, right? You can warm those up. So go for like a nice bright red. And what you're gonna do is change your blend mode, okay? And you could do things like hard light, for example. See that? And I just sort of add a bit of red there. Bit of red on the nose. Okay, across the cheeks here. It's just adding a bit of tone. Really subtle stuff, okay? For the hair there, you want to go like super bright with the yellow where the sunlight is hitting it. See that? You just kind of add that whole effect right there. So those are the kinds of subtle things you can do later with blending modes and stuff like that to really take it to the next level. I just want to show you those tricks now so you know in case I don't have time to get to them later. They're really, really great. And they do make a big difference later on when you're getting to those final stages of the illustration. Okay, importante for you to know about those. Okay, so back to, oops. Sorry, gang, I'm just getting my layers a little funny. There we go. Make sure I have that little connector there. If you know you're doing this yourselves, if you're doing this kind of work, do be sure to zoom in where it's necessary to work on getting your shapes right. So I know I talk about don't zoom in too far if it's about detail stuff, but look, I'm doing the zooming here where it matters for shapes. Okay, I want to make sure the shapes are right. And there's a good, healthy balance of variety and things that make the world go round with your drawing, if you know what I mean. Variety is a spice of life. Variety is a spice of an interesting drawing. We got to have these things. They really make a difference. So yeah, That's why I was zooming in, trying to make sure all that stuff was looking decent. Okay? It's important. Okay, so I could spend all day with that stuff. I'm going to leave it alone for now. We're going to just quickly move on here. And we're going to add another layer. Okay, it's going to be clipped. We're going to deal with this shirt right here. Now, the yellow, I'm actually kind of liking it as a color because it makes me just go, oh, I want to look at this whole thing going on here, whatever this kid's got going on. I want to look over here. All right, so I'm going to leave that yellow for the shirt. It just kind of works. Now, of course, we want to go and do something interesting with the shadows, so we're going to go greener. We're going to go darker. And we're just gonna hit it. Like this. All right, and then we come on the inside here. Now we can get more picky with our shape there. And we just want to make it feel like there's an arm sticking out like that. Okay? Now don't be afraid to, you can make rules wherever you want. It's your drawing, you're the artist. You can make these kinds of decisions where if I feel like, you know what, I'm gonna use a little bit of line there. Okay, even though I'm doing more of a sort of I don't know, painterly is the right word here, but doing sort of more of a painted approach to this character. If you feel like, hey, I'll just throw some line work in there to kind of clarify some bits and pieces, there's no rule saying you can't do that. Okay, you can use it wherever you want, like here on this face. Right, if I want to grab that color, go a little darker, and just do that under the chin, right? There's no rule says I can't do that. There's no rule says I can't add a little nostril there, whatever. This is fine. Okay, don't feel like you absolutely have to avoid mixing your vocab. Okay, if part of your vocab is lines, then part of your vocab is lines, and it's totally fair to do that. Okay, you've just seen me do it. The style police didn't come after me, so I guess I'm safe, right? You make it what you want. It's your drawing. Perfectly fine to do that. So don't worry about it. All right, we have a book here. We'll just go ahead and grab this color and borrow it. You notice I haven't turned the sketch on in a while, right? I'm just not going to bother with that right now. I'm going to just kind of go wing it because, again, like, we don't have a lot of time, but also I feel confident that I'm going to get some of it right. It's going to be okay. So I'm just not freaking out about it. It's going to be fine. You can borrow colors from your drawing to make it so that you don't have like just crazy number of different colors all over the place. That's always a good thing to do. Try and keep things a little limited. Okay. Let me come over here. I want you to notice, since the topic of this is details and all that good stuff, what you'll notice is there's more contrast here. Brighter colors, more contrast, more of everything going on with the face here, right? the contrast of those darks to lights and all that, these clear solid shapes and all that business. This is the whole deal. This is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to make it so that the person looking at this illustration, there's no question in their minds where they should be paying attention, okay? That is just not something they have to think about. It should be obvious from the moment they take a gander at this where they should be looking, right? See how important it is to use your keyboard commands. You notice how often I'm just grabbing color with the eyedropper tool, using the option key to quickly select color, right? Makes a huge difference in my life. If I didn't have it, if I wasn't using it, it would take so much longer. But I do have it, I'm taking advantage. It's important to know these little tricks and to use them, okay? Lineless illustrations, rarely 100% lineless. Yes, it's fine to add lines where they're needed. I agree, Gary, exactly. Agreed. We got about like 10 or 15 minutes, or maybe 10 minutes left here to see how far we can get. Obviously, if it wasn't such a short period of time we have together, I would spend more time getting all my shapes just right, etc., etc. But I don't have that luxury, so it is what it is. This whole area could just be this, right? You could literally just throw it all into shadow like that if you wanted to, and nobody would really care. There's so many different choices you can make with this stuff, you know, and all of them could be correct. It's totally up to you. All right, so cool this down a little bit. Go ahead, hair darker there. We'll just bump up against all this stuff. To separate this from the other side. And we need a color for the pants, and you know, again, I don't want them to be interesting, so I could literally do this, grab that green right there, go a little lighter, a little grayer, a little warmer, and see how that feels. If against the blue there it's too close, which it might be, we'll just lighten it up. We'll just go like this. That'll probably be okay, because I'm gonna make some shadows with it too. But what I can do is I can add a color, excuse me, not a color, a layer underneath here, like this. Just add another layer. Remember, everything here is clipped, so you know, it's not an issue, right? Everything's clipped, and by having everything clipped, sorry, my chair is like sinking into the abyss here. I'm gonna remove that cushion, drop that down, and there we go. Because everything is clipped, it's glorious. You have all this freedom to just do this. I'm not worried about it, see? I'm not freaking out about it. Somehow I painted into the hands. It doesn't look bad actually, but I'll just go ahead and fix that really quickly here. Actually kind of like that. It's like reflected light. It's kind of cool. Maybe I'll come back and actually do that on purpose. But yeah, I can do this, and it's great because I'm just going outside the lines and not getting penalized for it. It's awesome. All right, we can go darker here. And right where there's a separation, I can just do that. And that area on the layer above, right here, just has to be corrected with that same color. There we go. When you have more contrast in your shadows, it's like, so like the range of values you're using there is bigger. Okay, which is what I'm doing here. Notice that. What does that tell you about the light situation? What does it make you think? It should tell you, if it's done correctly, that it's brighter out, right? There's more light. There are deeper shadows, right? More intense shadows. That's what that should convey. At least that's what I want it to convey. Okay. There. Now you notice that color against the blue. Well, they're pretty darn similar, but don't forget, I have the bench on a separate layer. I can return to the bench, which has this layer locked, transparency locked, and I can do this. See? I can add shadow there, right up against the edge. Okay, and push that even farther if I want. And then I can come back and go one way or the other. I can also, with this pant leg, I can go lighter and bluer, like this. You could do stuff like add a little kind of reflected light kind of situation. Get super fancy. Okay, totally up to you. Lots and lots of options. Yeah. All right, one more minute. See what I can do in a minute here, gang. I know we're running low on time, but hey, this is we've still done quite a bit of work here. I'm happy with what we've gotten done in only an hour. Could be a lot less impressive, I think. So for what we've done here, let's be happy. It's not bad, not bad. Some shoes, throw some socks in there. We can just reuse that blue if we want, right? Totally fine. Make sure you clip stuff. Just look how much easier life is when you do, right? We've been able to accomplish a lot more because of that. All right, well, no time to do anything else but final touch. We'll just do this. We'll throw a little purple over the whole thing and do a little soft light. Check that out, gang. Magic. Magic at the end. See what that does? Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot. Got as far as we could, and the result is okay. I think it works okay for now. So there you go, gang. Thanks for hanging out. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Remember to be kind. Have a great weekend, and I'll say Ciao for now.